It's Daybreak on the Arise News channel. As promised before that break, it's time for the press review. And we have this morning with us Dr. Constance Ikoku, Arise News analyst, social commentator, and a journalist. Good morning, Dr. Ikoku.
Very good morning to you, Adesuwa in green today. Yes. And good morning to you, Nkechi, as well.
Good morning.
All right, to review the papers with us this morning, we have Igor Akerera. He was here yesterday. He's a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors and former deputy editor at The Guardian. Welcome, Igor.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Yeah, so it's the women's squad today. Are you ready for us? 3 to 1.
One can be very scared of the women sometimes.
Okay,
but I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah.
Don't be scared. It's going to be good. We will begin with this day newspaper. In this day, NSA Terrorism has left profound and painful mark in Nigeria. National Security Advisor Malam Nuhu Ribadu called for global collaboration with Nigeria in the battle to end insecurity in the country. He spoke at the International Day of Remembrance and Tribute to Victims of Terrorism. He was represented by Major General Adamu Laka. He also paid a tribute to security agencies leading the war on terror and said the scars of terrorism are deep. I mean, this is a fact. The NSA was saying what we already know. You know, governments or states used to have monopoly of violence conferred on them by the people in exchange for protection. However, what we have seen for many years is that a lot of African countries are massively or hugely affected by terrorism. Talk about Nigeria, Mali, Chad, Burkina Faso, Somalia, Cameroon, Niger. It's just been a lot of crisis in these countries, and that's why we have seen some sort of revolution from these countries against their government, because they feel the instability has led to a life that is really impoverishing for them, Igor.
Yes, I agree with the National Security Advisor, that is the former EFCC chairman, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, that indeed terrorism has left a deep scar on the country, and particularly on citizens who are still really struggling to recover from the pains of that terrorism has imposed on the country. As far back as 2004, when Mohammed Yusuf was allegedly killed by security forces in detention. Mohammed Yusuf, who notoriously founded the Boko Haram terrorist organization, was arrested by soldiers, handed over to police officers, and of course, controversially, he was killed. And since then, we've not known peace. The high point of terrorism in Nigeria was on August 26, 2011, when, of course, Abuja, we knew what happened in Abuja, and across almost Abuja, it got up to Kogi State at a point, and Kogi almost became the epicenter of the production of IEDs, improvised explosive devices. On August 26, 2011, the UN house was bombed in Abuja. That was when global attention focused on Nigeria, and they began to look at Nigeria as a country of interest. And since then, we've really not known peace. So, Nuhu Ribadu, as you rightly pointed out, is not saying anything new, but what we need to deal with is close to 20 years or more of having to confront terrorists right on our shores. We've not seen, the security forces are doing so much, the military, that is the armed forces, the police, the civil defense, the DSS, they are doing so much. But the impact of what is being done has not really resonated well in terms of enduring peace. Farmers still can't get to their farmlands. There is hunger in the land. That was what led to the End Bad Governance protest. So a whole lot of work still needs to be done, because the essence and priority of any government anywhere in the world is for the welfare and security of citizens. Once you cannot guarantee that, then the government has a big challenge up in its hands.
Right, and you mentioned Mohammed Yusuf. When that started, when he started his movement, I think Nigerians didn't really know what was ahead of them or what was going to happen. He was taken very lightly in the circumstances of his death, and eventually this mayhem was unleashed on the country, but also in other countries. So when the NSA talked about the sacrifices that have been made by security forces since then, you have a lot of them that have died in the process of trying to protect the country, and also talking about the international angle in terms of collaboration. But when it comes to that collaboration, some countries haven't seen that that has helped either. And so the question again, that is why was in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, you know, decided to ask the French to leave their country because they haven't seen that progress in terms of that international collaboration. So many angles and factors to this story at this one.
Indeed. And one thing to also note is that the act of terrorism itself has morphed, and we see that play out in Nigeria beyond, you know, what we've seen originating in the northeast Borno state, in particular in Nigeria in 2014. Then we are now seeing it morph into different things such as banditry, kidnapping, and all of that. And Igor is right to his point about, you know, the international angle. But the question really is, what's the quality of the collaboration? And I think that's where, to your point, that those three countries in sub-Saharan Africa decided to break away to say, we have not seen the quality of your help. And if we're not going to see quality, we don't see why you are here. But really, it's an ideology. And I think that the NSA is right when it says, we cannot fight this alone. Beyond, you know, what we are doing, international collaboration. The president is saying in the story that we're taking steps to secure the nation, counter desperate acts of terrorism. Terrorism is beyond fighting the guns. We must also fight the ideology. It's like a, how do they call it? A multi-headed snake, a hydra-headed snake. You know, you cut off one, but you have, you know, several others springing up. So what are we really doing to fight the root causes of this beyond securing our borders? Because then you have the angle of proliferation of weapons into the country, what is happening in other countries that, you know, cascades into our country through our porous borders. But then we must fight the ideology, like I said. We must fight the root causes of poverty. We have an initiative in Nigeria where we try to sort of reintegrate these people we call de-radicalized.
That has been controversial.
You know, that has been very controversial. How much have we seen in that aspect? Right. Is it time for us to rejig all of this, our efforts? You know, after a decade of fighting terrorism, we need to go and measure our, you know, efforts and see where we've got it wrong and how we can improve.
Well, lots on that front. We had the joint
multinational task force in the region as well.
Yeah, that's still being challenged. A lot of work on that front. Let's move on to The Guardian. In The Guardian, echoes of cabinet reshuffle trail minister's performance a year after. There have been murmurings regarding cabinet reshuffle. A good time to discuss this because, you know, we've had a nationwide protest recently, and also the fact that not long ago, ministers publicly shared their achievements a year after in office with the people. Should anyone at this point, Igor, be talking about cabinet reshuffle? Is it necessary in light of what the government has done so far?
Well, it may be necessary to the extent that the president thinks it is. For me, a job has been given to Mr. President to oversee the responsibility of governance. We were told before the election that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is well prepared for this job, that he has his team ready, he is going to hit the ground running on the first day. But what we have seen so far, you know, 1 year, 2 months after he was sworn in on May 23 last year, we've seen that there's a whole lot of, you know, there's a whole lot of crawling that has led to public disaffection. A lot of people are not impressed with the government performance so far. If you recall, November last year when the president called a retreat, he was quoted to have warned, the newspapers reported he was quoted to have seriously warned and cautioned the ministers to sit up and perform. Right. And of course, he initiated the presidential to track the performance of ministers, which was directly under the purview of a special advisor on policy coordination, Bala Usman. Hadiza Bala Usman, yeah, you got that right. So since then, we've not heard so much. Around January, we saw the scandal that rocked the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, headed by Ms. Betta Edu, who eventually got suspended, and the Minister of Internal Affairs, Olubunmi Ojo, was linked to some form of contracts related to consultancy work and all that. He survived that, but Betta Edu didn't quite survive. So it is long overdue if the president thinks that he's not getting the result that he expected. Don't forget, the president himself is also a minister. He's the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and a whole lot of the trouble in this country revolves around access to petrol, to gas, so he too needs to ask himself if yes.
And let's stay on that tracking. There was a performance bond, or we were told that the ministers will sign a performance bond, and also there's a central coordination unit in the presidency, headed by that special advisor on policy and coordination. And the goal was to make sure that the performance of the ministers were tracked. So we had a verbal relaying of what they've done. But that unit hasn't told us the score of the ministers. Nkechi, perhaps it is necessary for Nigerians to have, or for them to share with us, what is the score of each minister, so you can also understand who is working and who is just warming the chair.
You see, that's one of the issues that we have when it comes to what we do in Nigeria. You start something, we had that I think assessment sort of report that we're supposed to get from the ministers, and then there's no continuation.
In fact, an app was even developed for that.
Exactly, yes. And then there's no continuation. You don't come back and tell us, this is what we got from that assessment report. This is what this ministry has done. This is what they plan to do. This is how they plan to do it. This is their short, medium, long-term policies and how that would impact Nigeria. And I think a mere reshuffle of ministers, I don't know how important that is right now. I think we just need a reshuffle of priorities. We need a reshuffle of people who are there for service rather than their own personal interest at this point. And for people who say, oh, maybe it's just a short time for them, they're still getting their footings. No. 1 year is enough for us to be seeing some sort of impact from every ministry. There are some ministries that people even forget that we have. They're just there. I mean, we have up to 48 ministers. Almost 50 ministries. And I think... Ministers, I mean. And I think reshuffling, I don't know how that's going to help. We need more follow-up. We need more, some people talk about some ministers that you can see their impact. Yes, on Wike, you can see around Abuja what's happening. Even the minister that Mr. Igbo just talked about, Olubunmi Tunjojo, in Interior, you can see some sort of visible impact in what they're doing. Minister of Works as well, but some of the other ministers really, I don't really know what they're doing. And so when it comes to even checking them, accountability, transparency, we always need that follow-up. Communication is very important when it comes to governance and leadership. Okay, let's see Punch newspaper. In the Punch, PDP chair, Wike tackle Clark as anti-Fubara plot thickens. Pro-Fubara Wike assemblies hold parallel sections rumble in NWC over Rivers governor. I won't quit, PDP, says Wike. The acting national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Umar Damagun, and Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, knocked Chief Edwin Clark after he accused both of them of colluding to destroy the party. This comes as it was learned that 12 members of the National Working Committee of the party, led by Damagun, were allegedly collaborating with Wike to unseat the Rivers State Governor, Sim Fubara. The party's NWC has been split into two as a result.
as 3 members opposed the move to remove Fubara. I mean, Rivers State is literally paralyzed by ongoing conflict between Fubara and Minister Wike. Not many had the guts to call out the minister, but Chief Edwin Clark, an elder statesman, did that a few days ago. And not surprisingly, Damagun and Wike are coming for his head. Igor.
Well, this is not expected. We've seen the intrigues that is running deep in Rivers State for a while. For Edwin Clark, is as I said yesterday, is highly respected across Nigeria, not just only the Niger Delta, where clearly he has remained consistent on what he thinks that Nigeria should be. He's of course he's a member of the PDP, because clearly the way he speaks is very much in support of the PDP, and he's from that part of the country, from the Niger Delta. When anybody who watched Umar Damagun yesterday as he spoke on television, and then also watched the Minister of the FCT, Wike, on TV as he addressed some select editors yesterday, you will know that this war is far from over, that is running deep, that both sides are digging deep in the trenches. For Sim Fubara, I'm happy yesterday he has also maintained very clearly that he was not leaving the PDP, is going to remain. Wike is also saying he's remaining in the PDP. For the acting national chairman of the PDP, Damagu, he has a whole lot of work to do, but from the way he speaks, he didn't quite hide his intention that he works with Wike and then some of the other persons that are opposed to Fubara, and the strengthening of the PDP to play its critical role as an opposition party. I see Damagun as a very competent person. Even the way he comes across, his projection, his language, he doesn't inspire any confidence in any party mind, anybody who is a member of the PDP. The PDP as a political party once prided itself as the biggest political party in Africa. Its members must come together to do something about the current leadership of that party that is in place. Otherwise, the APC is just going to ride roughshod over the rest of us.
Right. I mean, it's interesting to see how much of a fight politicians will put up. There's no sense of reasoning on what is happening. It shows you that this is really personal fight and not for the people. Let's quickly do Vanguard. In the Vanguard, end bad governance protest, CSOs berate FG over prolonged detention of protesters without charges. So, since August 1, those that were arrested, this is Vanguard newspaper if we have it, those that have been arrested are still in detention, which many say this is against the human rights this war.
Indeed. I mean, anyone who hears that, you either charge them or let them go. So you wonder why you're keeping them indiscriminately. And it speaks to even the protest of 2020, the NSAS protests, yes. And the police still maintain that they have nobody in custody. But you've had protesters who keep saying that, you have some people who have been held since then. I think it's high time for us to understand that people do have the rights to protest. And if you are not going to charge them, if these protesters that have been arrested do not have any answers, do not have any crime to answer to, the police should free them. You talk about congestion of our prisons and our holding cells. This is why you have them, because you keep people unnecessarily, unlawfully in such places. And our records about human rights will continue to be staggering because of instances like this. It would be nice to hear the Inspector General of Police and the police authorities speak to these accusations, because for now, we're just hearing from the protester side and the civil society organizations. The police has to tell us, why are they holding them? What is their crime?
Well, a lot of explaining to do by the police there. Let's move on to Guardian again. There's a story we should touch on. Tough times ahead as subsidy claims of 7.7 trillion naira of FAC allocations. Subsidy shaves, actually. Already the debt profile of state is rising, and we're having this regarding the implementing of a 70,000 minimum wage. How are they able to manage? At the beginning of this administration, we were told that more money is being given to states because subsidy has been removed. But it looks like we're back to square one, Eo, briefly.
Well, clearly this is an impeachable offense. May last year, the president told Nigeria that subsidy was gone. I can't recall anywhere the president has reversed that that policy statement that he made. So if people are smuggling the conversation around subsidy back to national discourse and the president is mum, then who are we to believe? For me, I want to believe the president. I want to believe that subsidy is gone. So President Tinubu should come and address the nation on the issue of subsidy. Is the country still paying subsidy? Is the government paying subsidy or not? If the government is paying subsidy, then Mr. President needs to apologize to Nigerians. If we are paying 7.7 trillion naira on subsidy and yet we can't have access to petrol, you can't drive into the petrol stations and have access. Everywhere is still, there's still long queue in Lagos, Abuja, and everywhere, and the prices have gone up. So what is going on? There's clear mismanagement somewhere. There's clear incompetence somewhere. So, and the president himself is the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and he has a junior minister. So both of them has a lot of explanations to make.
Indeed, a lot of explanations. Let's move on to...
I'm just going to say, you was going to say the president should sack himself at some point.
Oh my goodness.
As Minister of Petroleum Resources. But just to quickly also add, that there's confusion apart from the things you've highlighted, because we have heard the NNPC say no kobo was paid to anybody in 8 years as subsidy. And the president just came into power 1 year and 2 months ago, and he said to us, no more subsidy. So apparently, 8 years, no subsidy, right? But the president says subsidy must go. So there's a lot of confusion.
Well, let's move on to Citizen South Africa, Citizen newspaper. That's the international stories. Light at the end of Eskom tunnel. The team at Eskom's Motor Power Station went from pointing fingers to holding each other accountable. The team has improved power output from 50 to 69% to curb blackouts. One of 6 plants working productively on the utilities turnaround strategy. The power is, this power station is important to South Africa in light of the fact that they have been facing blackouts, there has been load shedding, and now there has been improvement of production in this. And this is going to affect the economy positively in Kechi.
Yes, definitely. That's a very critical part of any country, any region. When you talk about power, it has ripple effects on businesses, it has ripple effects on households, it has ripple effects on transportation, on education. So it's very important that they're tackling this straight on, and they're doing it in such a way that it's going to be sustainable. That's very, very important. Instead of just doing sort of an immediate mitigation, it's great to see this movement in light of all the blackouts that they've been having, because when you come to, for example, in Nigeria, when we've been having all these blackouts, we've been having a lot of national grid failure, especially in Abuja. I think right now in the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of blackouts, and so you need to tackle this and nip it in the bud, because it has all those ripple effects, and then it also boils down to how this would affect the economy. Right.
Finally, let's look at the Washington Post. Walz accepts VP nomination. Oprah Winfrey, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, our friend Nancy Pelosi, this one, also highlighted on day 3. Day 3 was yesterday. The night was full of dignitaries, making speeches, backing Kamala Harris. VP Walz was, introduced as a father, a teacher, a husband, a former governor, a former congressman, and everybody rallied around them. So all the Democratic bigwigs, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton looked good, by the way. They were there to back Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they have no excuses here. They have the trend behind them. Let's see after this convention whether they are able to sustain this energy and whether it leads them across the finishing line. Igor, we have less than a minute, so. Yes,
I think I want to just congratulate VP Kamala Harris. She's smelling of roses right now, because she's hearing all the right words, all the right endorsements are coming in, and that is what any candidate will want to see. So it's a beautiful day for her. It's a beautiful moment for her. I just hope she's able to ride on this momentum and win the November elections.
Right. Right, today's day 4, final day of the DNC, and she will be speaking, selling herself to the American people because she's popular, but a lot of people don't really know who she is. You know, she's been under the shadow of Joe Biden as, you know, vice president in the last 4 years, but she will sell herself to the people. Tim Walz, by the way, was Coach Walz on the night, day 3 of the DNC. He sold himself, taking even the word of the RNC, the Republicans' freedom, and normalizing it, humanizing it to the American people. It was a great night to watch. It
was. Nkechi, do you have anything to add before we
run out?
I
think the DNC, they really did a good job at this point. I think leading up to the convention, yes, there was people were rallying around Kamala Harris, but I think it's now gone into a whole new arena. The unity that it's shown, the big wigs that they've been able to bring out, it's not even comparable to what the RNC did. And we're just looking forward to hear what Kamala Harris has to say. Arise News on ground in Chicago will bring us all the updates. And I think that's all the time we have today.
You don't allow the RNC to come after you. We're not comparing. We're just reporting.
We have to compare. We can't because everyone who even gave a speech also mentioned Trump. We have to compare.
Okay.
Those are the things when it comes to politics. You have to compare and tell us why you are better. DNC, they've been doing that for the past 3 days. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much, Dr. Ikoku, for always joining us early this morning. Thank you, Mr. Igo, for joining us in our offside studio. That's all from us here on Daybreak. Up next is The Morning Show. I am Nkechi Nana.
Good morning. I'm Adesua Morwan.